Hi everyone, I'm Miss Henema. E today's video will bring part 1 on what I believe it is the biggest challenge we can face in our lives, which is confronting ourselves. Well, that is what we will call confrontation. And to support all my comments during this entire discussion, I will use the same reference we applied last week during our introduction, which is just John 21 from 15 to 17. So we know already the context of this text, for this I will just read. We see here in English the simple question from Jesus to Peter. Simon, son of John, you love me more than this? This is a very interesting question, right? We'll see what the Greek of the New Testament says in comparison with English. Σίμων Ιωάννου, ἀγαπᾷς με, πλέον τούτων? This is a very beautiful and deep question. We'll discuss from now and around everything will be comment. But as we saw in our introduction from last week, during this intimate and personal conversation, Peter had to look within himself and recognize what he had for Jesus, as well as recognize who even he was at that time. And then I compared that experience to those moments in our lives when we feel like almost naked or uncovered and unable to escape from ourselves, because wherever we go, there will be our personal conflict, once it is within us, like happened with Peter. And this is exactly what we'll be talking about in these next few minutes. I hope you enjoy. So, before to go ahead, I just will want to show very quick how I will divide our next topics about this topic, confrontation. Part 1, which is today, we'll be talking about the interpretation of the text. I referring to John 21, 15 to 17. Also, we'll talk about Peter, who was him, or who he was, where he came from, which was his profession, which kind of interesting personal experiences he had in his life, and how his character was formed to become the disciple he was for Jesus, and especially how he ended his life, what he did in the ministry, how he concluded his walk in his Christian life. We'll talk about all this point today in our first part about confrontation, based on John 21. The second part will be next week. We'll make the difference between sheep and lambs, which are the two main words relating to the same reference. And also, we'll make the difference between shepherd and to graze. These are different tasks and responsibilities God is even today asking to his leaders, his ministries, including the pastor. And also, because you'll be talking about shepherd and grace, it will be necessary to talk about the pastor and his or her main functions, which are the pastor's main responsibilities. His call means what? How his relationship, and also his ministry, his teaching, preaching, and all these things the pastor has to do, how they can be relating to the church, and what the good result the people can receive from his or her ministry. And the last part, which will be part 3, we'll be talking about some interesting experiences, contextualize experiences between people in our time today. Also, we'll talk about the great personal challenge Peter faced in his life, what we can learn from him and his experience now. He also will go at the very last point his final ministerial life, his end, how it happened. And the main question here is, this time of conversation, special meeting with Jesus, was really able, was good, was positive, it bring good result for his final period of his life. We'll see about this point in the third and last part of our topic. Today we are in part 1 with the interpretation. Then we'll go directly to our main text or reference, Bible reference, which is John 21, 15 to 17. And what I will do now is I will read all this reference, then I will go back to the first verse, which is 15, to make some important observations about the very main words in each one of these texts. So in Greek, we read the verse 15 is the same we read last week in our introduction. Verse 15 says, Hote eriste san legei to Simon Petro ho Jesus, Sίμων Ιωάννου, ἀγαπᾷς πλέον τούτων, λέγεω το, νάι Kyrie, σου οἶδας hote φιλόσαι, λέγεω το, bosketa arnia mu. I'll go back later in the same text. In English, we read the same verse, as you know already. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than this? Yes, Lord, he said. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my lambs. Verse 17 in Greek, 16 in Greek. Λέγεω το πάλιν deuteron. Σίμων Ιωάννου, ἀγαπᾷς με, λέγεω το, νάι Kyrie, σου οἶδας hote φιλόσαι, λέγεω το, ποιμανετά πρόβατα μου. In English, the same verse 16. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, Shepherd my sheep. Verse 17, λέγεω το τρίτον, Σίμων Ιωάννου, φίλες με, ελοπέτη ο Πέτρος, ότι είπεν αυτό το τρίτον, φίλες με, καί είπεν αυτό, Κύριε, πάντα σου οἶδας, σου γινώσκες ότι φιλόσαι, λέγεω το ο Ιησούς, bosketa πρόβατα μου. In English, he said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was sad because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. So, from now, we will think in this very important question. In your opinion, why did Jesus ask the same thing for the same person 3 times? And what does each question mean? So I think with myself, if Jesus asked the same question for 3 different people, it makes a better sense for me. It's less complicated to understand. But when he asked the same thing 3 times for the same man, it does not make too much sense for me because the language, in this case English now, cannot help us to understand the difference between one and other question. So then, I think why he asked 3 times the same thing for the same person. it was like, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? For the same person, we cannot understand what else had if you don't have something additional to help us to understand and understand better. For this reason, I think in English as another language like Spanish, Portuguese, the other languages, if you depend this language only, we cannot identify the different terms or words that differentiate the word love, because in each one of Jesus' questions, he referred to the word love, but we cannot differentiate if we just depend of English, as is our case today. I mean, which word Jesus used to ask Peter, do you love me? And which word Peter answered Jesus with? For this reason, we check the original language of the New Testament, as you see here in these 3 verses in Greek, which is, by the way, the Greek koine, which is easier and faster to understand. So the question, come back to the question, why did Jesus ask the same thing for the same person 3 times, and what does each question mean? And I think it depends on the term referring to love that Jesus used each one of them, each one of his questions. In Greek, as you see here, we have some important words or terminologies. I am sure we have more than 4 important words, but for me, in my particular perception, I consider these 4 words as the most important in Greek relating to love. So the first one here, as we saw already in our introduction, is ἀγάπη. Ἀγάπη means perfect love, which just comes from God, because we know already only Him is perfect. For this, ἀγάπη is directly associated with Him, perfect love. The second is φιλíα, which is imperfect love, because it is the human love, as love of people, as the love of a person, as our love is completely imperfect, is good, but is imperfect. The third is estorge. It is the family love, is the love developed between parents and children and vice versa. And also the last is eros, which is the sexual love, and this kind of love is not relating to this text of John 21, because it talks about another context, like married, all these things we know already, and it is not our topic today. But we will be working with these 2 first, ăγάπη and φιλíα. For this reason, I bring my very short list about terminologies relating to love. So come back now to this verse 15. What we see. The first thing we saw last week is the way as Jesus asked Peter or Simon if he loved him. And Jesus started here, Sίμων Ιωάννου, ἀγαπᾷς me, πλέον τούτων. So we see here when Jesus asked Sίμων Ιωάννου, Sίμon Ioannu is son of John, ἀγαπᾷς me, amas, loves me, or the opposite, right? But the thing here is the word ἀγαπᾷς referring to ἀγάπη, which is the perfect love. In all these words, Jesus was asking Peter, do you love me with a perfect love? And on top of this super question, Jesus added the word pleon, which is the word which brings intensity to the same question, because pleon means more, as you see here in English, more or much more. Jesus was asking Peter, do you love me with a perfect love, much more than this, these other people there. Pleon is more, much more. And sometimes pleon always appears as more deeply or abundantly, more completely. The thing is, pleon brings intensity. It sounds like a complete action around a specific topic. This word pleon in this sentence is very, very, very important. It brings a complete impact to the same question Jesus is asking to Peter. And then the last word, tούtων, is the pronoun relating to someone or some people who are close. For this, he asked the ἀγαπᾷς me πλέον τούτων. In English, we can translate, do you love me more than this? This here is a pronoun we use to refer to a group who is close. This, and then I imagine when Jesus was asking to Peter, ἀγαπᾷς me πλέον τούτων, do you love me more than this? He was looking maybe to the other disciples who were, I imagine, a little not too far, a little close of them. For this, he could apply the pronoun this. This other disciple, these other people, do you love me with a perfect love more than this? And then, which was Peter's answer? He said very quick, legeuto, say him. Naigiri, yes, Lord, he said. Tu oidas hote philosi. You know that I love you. So, but if you see the Peter's answer, philose, I love you, relating to the second category of love, which is filía. Filía is the infinitive, or the noun, and here is the verb when the omega here is the first of personal pronoun, which means I, right? As we see here in English. The thing is I, and the root love of phil comes from filía. I love you. Se, you. In this case, Jesus asked with the word which indicates perfect love, even much more than everybody else. And Peter just say, yes, I love you, but with the imperfect love. Anyway, after his answer, what Jesus say? He say here the second part, legeuto, now referring to Jesus. Say him, or say him, bosketa arniamu, feed my lambs. As you see here in English, feed my lambs. Right now you'll come back to this bosk also arnia. So you see the difference. Jesus asked in the first question using the perfect love, and Peter says, yes, I love you, but with the imperfect love. Is a huge difference between one and other. Then Jesus comes the second time. The text says, legeuto palin deuteron. Say him again the second time. As we see here, second time. Palin is again, deuteron second time. Sίμων Ιωάννου, Simon, a son of John. ἀγαπᾷς me. And then you see just the first part of the question. And by the way, this semicolon here you see, this punctuation, is in Greek a question mark. For this, I try to make the intonation of a question. Σίμων Ιωάννου, ἀγαπᾷς me, this is a question. So, ἀγαπᾷς me. The thing is, I don't know if you see the difference, but here in the second question, Jesus didn't ask anymore the word pleon and even tούtων. He cut, in other words, he cut the half of the question. He just asked Peter, do you love me? Just this. He didn't say, do you love me more than this? That he cut the half of the question. He just says, Sίμων Ιωάννου, ἀγαπᾷς me, and then question mark here. The question ended there. So in this case, Jesus cut off the intensity, the super demand of the semi-question. He just limited his question in one word. Do you love me? ἀγαπᾷς me? Question mark. So this change make for Peter easier, make the situation easier for him to answer Jesus, because now he didn't have anymore the weight, the impact of the word pleon. Pleon, remember, is much more than these other people, is deeper, more abundantly, more deeply, more completely, much more than these other people. Jesus cut all this part, just asked it. Do you love him with the perfect love? He continued in perfect love, as we see. ἀγαπᾷς comes from ἀγάπη, but not anymore πλέον τούτων. So the second question is just 50%. It's just a half of the super demand of the question. And what Peter say? Λέγει autor, say him. Say him. Ναί Kyrie, yes Lord, σου οἶδας hote φιλόσαι. You know that I love you. But again we see Peter's love was for the second time φιλۆ, que is I love, referring to φιλíα. In other words, Jesus asked, do you love me with a perfect love? And Peter said, yes, God, I love you, but with an imperfect love. And Jesus continues saying, λέγει autor, say him, referring now to Jesus, poimaineta probata mu. This is shepherd, or the word here, shepherd my sheep. The first is feed my lambs, now is shepherd my sheep. We'll talk right now about the difference. Now we'll just discuss the difference in questions and answers between Jesus and Peter. So the third time you say here, verse 17, legge autor to triton, say him for the third time, as you see in English. He say him the third time, triton third time, Sίμων Ιωάννου, Simon son of John. Villes me, and then question mark here again. Now here is the big difference I want you see in your Bible. When Jesus asked the third time, triton, he asked for the third time. Simon in English, Simon son of John, do you love me? This word love me here is completely changed. See, the first Jesus used ἀγαπᾷς from ἀγάπη, the second one again ἀγάπη, but the third, what happened? Jesus asked Sίμων Ιωάννου, filles me comes from φιλíα, which is the imperfect love. If you see, Jesus dropped himself to Peter's level, to his level of comprehension, because during this whole conversation, Peter never could climb until Jesus' level, he be in his high level, in his high comprehension, high level of comprehension, because he could not climb until Jesus. Jesus climbed down to him. He dropped himself to use his own language. And then he asked, filles me, really? In other words, Jesus was asking, Peter, do you love me really, even with this imperfect love? Because if you don't love him with the perfect heel, first question, you cannot continue. And the second question, which is used yet the perfect love, now I climb to you, and then I ask, you are sure, you are very sure you love me, even with the imperfect love? then this is the question. Here we don't see also pleon, much more than others, just do you love him with the simple love, the common love, the limited love, and sometimes even poor love. Are you sure you love him with this kind of love, Peter? And then what the text say next? Elopete ho Petros. This word elopete, and by the way, here we have two pronunciations. I am using the old pronunciation, which is elopete, but the modern pronunciation for this word is elipite. I don't like too much this new, so I will continue to use the old pronunciation, which is elopete ho Petros. The elopete in this case is talks about sadness. He became sad. He was sad. He felt sad. Why? Elopete ho Pedro. Pedro, Piro, felt sad. De hot, because Eipen dijo, auto ele. Dijo ele ou say him or he say to tríton for third time. And then I jump to English to improve here my organization because I'm thinking other language at the same time. It is confusing. So here again, Peter was sad because he said to him the third time. This is what I'm trying because it's Greek, the syntax is the structure is different of English. I have to look for the words in different places in order to make a translation similar of English. And then, again in Greek, come here first of Peter. Peter was sad because him say for third time. The question, because his sadness fills me. So, elopete ho Petros hote pen auto triton. Fills me. So, you see in English, Peter was sad because he said to him the third time, do you love me? So, this is the part, fills me. E cai pen auto. E he said to him, sim. Peter answered Jesus, and he said, Kyrie, que is Lord, quantas oույδας, you know everything. Second part, su gnoskes hote philosophy. And then in English, we see the same word to the two different parts. Here in English, we say, you know everything, you know that I love you. The word know here, verb to know, repeat in English. But in Greek, we have two different words to talk about to know. The first is oույδας, que literally is to know. But in Greek, oույδας, which is to know in English, just refers to superficial things. For example, I can say, I know your name. I can use to know. I can use the verb oույδας because I'm talking about superficial things like I know your name. But I can say I don't know you. Why? Because it is not superficial anymore. It is very deep to know someone else. For this in Greek, the word changes here. To know, the second know here in English, change in Greek for gnosko, which is the verb to know deeply, to know completely, to know widely. This is the verb gnosko, and here is conjugated gnoskes because it refers to the second of singular, which in this case is Jesus. You know, so the second of singular. Then just to make a very important observation, Peter talked, he knew the same language of Jesus. So in the first point, he knew exactly what Jesus was asking him. The first, second, third. Do you love me with perfect love? Second time, do you love with a perfect love? Third, do you love really even with this imperfect love? So Peter was very aware about what Jesus was asking and what he was expecting to hear from him. But Peter, because his internal condition, situation, didn't have him a perfect condition to climb until Jesus' level. Jesus didn't condemn him. Jesus didn't criticize because he was a disciple, but he was so crazy, so bad, he was not okay. Jesus didn't say. He just climbed down. He came. He dropped himself until to reach Peter in his own personal human level, incapacity to understand. He also, Peter was so well, so good in this language, and even he made the difference between you know everything, you know deeply everything else, even you know how I love you, or which kind of love I have for you, or with which love I love you. All these things Peter knew very well. Then Jesus continued, lhe autor o Jesus. Jesus say to him, bosqueta probatamu. Again, feed my sheep. So in this case, we see a very intense, a very demanded, I say my words, super question from Jesus to Peter. First time, do you love me with perfect love more than this Aaron? Second, do you love me with perfect love? And third, he made it very clear he was dropping himself completely just to be in Peter's level, in his own situation, because Jesus was very decided to reach him and develop with him a very deep, well, and sweet and perfect relationship, because Jesus had a plan for this disciple, and then we'll see how the second part of Peter's life was after Jesus' death. So this is what you'll see from now about the questions. You'll come back next week with the other part. Before I go from this slide, from this part, we are still here in the first answer of Jesus. His first conclusion, feed my lambs. Feed here in this part. The first idea we can get is about the food. We will give food to feed the lambs. But in Greek, this word feed is much more than, or talk is more than food or water or something to make the physical body strong. This feed is directly associated with rest, with to make the sheep to rest completely, and also to rest permanently. So the first thing we'll see is Jesus demanded to pastors, as we see here, shepherd relating to pastor, is the huge responsibility to give to his lambs, which are not the most mature from the church or the ministry. For example, give peace. Give peace to the point to make them, his lambs, to rest and rest permanently. Now, to get to the point to make the lambs rest, in permanent rest, get to the point to be free of stress, concerns, anxieties, all these heavy situations or heavy feelings. The peace, the pastor, the leaders need to give it to Jesus' lambs, have to be the true peace, I mean the peace of God. Why I say this? Because in this present time, so many churches and denominations are inventing kind of false and very strange doctrines or dogmas or ideas based in their denominations or their religions or things like this, basically lying to the people. He offered a kind of a spiritual food which cannot make them rest in their spirit or in their soul. He take them out of from their agony or conflict or personal conflict, because this food they are giving are not really, these foods are not really true, are not permanent, are not eternal, are not spiritual. So in this case, Jesus asks us to feed his people with something which will endure forever. He only things from him, like his peace, is forever, as we know. We will talk about this a little clear, more complete next video. The second part, Jesus changed his conclusion for Peter. He says, poimanita probatamum. This here specifically talks about the pastor position. The pastor was called by God to take a position, to take a place, to take a position in the church as a head of the church, as a leader of the church, not to be a kind of a decoration, something beautiful in the church. You know, the pastor came, God brings, he anointed him or her because he has a big, a huge plan to his people through this person. So in this case, Jesus called the pastor to care for his probata, his sheep. And then next week, we'll see which is the difference between the probata and the arnia. Between these two, who is stronger? Who is the weaker? Who needs more attention? Who has a better discipline? Who between arnia and probata does not have any discipline, for this need more care? Which is the reaction, specific reaction, natural reaction of lambs and sheep, or arnia and probata, when we talk about their grow, spiritual growth, when they are developing and increase their faith, how each one has to behave if their growth or development is natural according God's word. Which difference can you see between each one of them, probata and arnia, and how to help them to continue normal to the point that one day they become also a leader in God's ministry? Which is the difference? And also at the end, in the third, also God called him, the pastor, to bosk, to give rest, to give permanent peace, also to the probata. So the first, Jesus say, feed my lambs. The second, he said, poimani, my probatas, or the sheep. And at the end, again, the probata come here. The first time, poimani them, and the second, bosk them. Which is the difference between one and other order or command or request from Jesus to Peter as a future apostle. So we'll see all these details next video, because if I say all here, it will be so long, also I will not have too much to say in the next video. So we'll stop here this part of interpretation of the text. You'll go to next part, which is Peter's life. What we know about Peter? What we can learn from his life. So we'll see here very quick. One thing we know is he is one of the 12 disciples of Jesus. So it's already a blessing. Second thing is we know Jesus came, or Peter was born in Bethsaida, right, in Galilee. And by the way, Bethsaida was a fishing town. I imagine everybody now knew very well how to fish and how to work with fishes. And also, beside this, Peter was a professional fisherman. We know this from the Bible. Peter and John were fishermen, these two together, and from there, Jesus called them to be part of his ministry. Now we'll see he was literally a professional fisherman. Even he had, according to the histories or information we have from Bethsaida, the fishermen from these people, including Peter, had very specific techniques in how to work well as a fisherman. For example, in case of Peter, he knew the exact seasons for the best fishing in his town. He knew because of the experience, because of the practice, year by year. Also, according to the strength of the wind, he knew where the fish were most crowded altogether, and therefore where to cast the fishing net to reach more fishes. It is very interesting. He could interpret the movement of the wind, the strength of the wind, the speed of the wind, and then calculating for which side the fish were all going together, accumulated like a crowd all together, and then according this direction he knew where to throw his fishing net to see how to get as much as possible of fishing. It is really very interesting. Probably he never studied much. Maybe he never had a kind of academic degree, for example. But I also believe Peter was not illiterate. He was not a kind of ignorant, because he wrote the two letters of Peter, which are almost in the end of the New Testament. I mean, First Peter and Second Peter. He wrote these two very important letters for us. So Peter died in Rome 36 years after the death of Christ. 36 years. He was a lot of time, long years after Jesus departed, after he come back to the heaven. And then it happened his death happened in the same period when the Emperor Nero ruled Rome. And it happened between 54 and 68 AD, as we know by the history, right? We know this man Nero, he put a fire in Rome, and then he accused the Christian people. He said they were the guilty people who destroyed Rome, and then because of this, the Christian ran away forever away. So many of them died, the others escaped. And then I think at this point, the verse from, I think, Acts 1:8 was completely complete, like prophesied, because the Bible says, after receiving power, you will preach my word in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and even to the end of the earth. While how it happened? Because the people were running away from Nero because his persecution, killing the Christians forever, because of his hate against or for the Christians. So in this case, in this period of time, Peter died all these years after Jesus. Now we see his original name was Simon, and his additional name was Peter. And Peter literally comes from Latin, which is Petra, in English, a stone or rock. It give us the idea that Jesus saw Peter at that time as a solid or strong as a rock. It is a very important, very valuable definition from Jesus to Peter. Now one thing we'll see is, I believe, his new name, Peter, also defined his identity and also his ministry. It is, for me, it is a very true definition. It defined his identity. Now he was a sinner before, and now in the time, from this time, he met Jesus. He became a man who was saving others for him. He became now a man of God. He had now a new identity, and also a new calling, a new ministry. So in this case, we'll see his name has a lot of meaning to his life. He has a very important interpretation relating to his life. We see also his name, Simon. Also, from his name Simon came this name Simeon, the second name of the name of the second son of the patriarch Jacob in the Old Testament. And therefore, the Simon is found also in the Old Testament as Simeon. This is the translation I am seeing now from Greek, Simon, to Hebrew, Simeon. So this change or this additional name was given to Simon when he declared that Jesus was the Son of God in Matthew 16, from 16 to 19. This verse is very interesting because it was like a mark. It was it highlighted Peter's life in front of Jesus' eyes. And this reference says this. I have here very close. It says, verse 16, Simon Peter answered him, "You are the Christ, the Son of God." Verse 17, Jesus said to him, "Blessed you are, Simon, son of John, because it was not flesh or blood that revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." Verse 18, "For I also tell you that from now you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of the Hades or the hell will not prevail against it." Verse 19, "I will give you the key of the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, however you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and however you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." This is this powerful and beautiful reference. Mark the change of his name. Simon appears about 156 times in the New Testament. When I say this number, more than 150, I'm not just referring to Simon Peter, not just referring for this disciple, but in the Bible, in the New Testament, we have a lot of other Simons. So all of them together, all kinds of Simons are included here in 156 times just in the New Testament. And 44 times in the Old Testament, as we saw here, I wrote Simeon, but the word is Simeon, right? In the Old Testament, translated to Hebrew. So now my question about all this thing, in particular, I have to see this discussion, this very interesting discussion between Jesus and Peter. Do you love me with perfect love? Yes, God, but Jesus, but with a very imperfect love. After this, my question is, why Peter? Why Jesus put his eyes on him so deep, so strongly? Why? Was there any specific reason why he was called, Peter was called to this special meeting with Jesus? Was there any specific reason? What do you think? And then this next slide will show us a little of the reasons, some of the reasons why Jesus called Peter apart, say we need to talk, we need to have a conversation because something is happening. Yeah, I want to let you to know also, I want to help you to fix them. So in this part, Jesus was trying to help him to improve, I will say this word, improve his character and reactions. We also hear some qualities and expressions of Peter's. For example, he was unstable and unbelieving. Matthew 14 from verse 28. We see a huge experience, Peter experienced with Jesus. What happened there? Jesus was walking the sea, and Peter and some disciples were in the boat. The distance was not too close, but was distant. And then when Peter saw, he understood the one in the water was Jesus. He said immediately, I want to go there, let me go. And Jesus, yes, come. And he was started to walk on the water. But suddenly something happened, and boom, he almost submerged on the water, because the concept, the idea we have is probably he was afraid for 1 second, he lost his face, he was insecure, so many things happened. But at the end, we consider he became unbeliever, basically for 1 second. Is so many important things we can learn from this point. We usually get messages about walking on the water, you are submerged, what to learn from this. We don't have time to invade all these aspects of this topic, but we know this point he was unstable. Why I use the word unstable? Because in my opinion, Peter had faith. When he walked on the water, if the water was not solid, was not like ice, he literally walked in the water, and he walked 2, 3, 4, 10 steps, for example, because he had faith. Some moment, something happened, he lost his face, he almost submerged. But in my opinion, even after to have faith, his face was unstable, was not permanent, was not resistant, was not solid. For this reason, he jumped from stable to unbelief, and the consequence submerged, like happens with us sometimes. We are very well, full of peace, rejoice, all these things. Something suddenly happen, everything inside of us change, and then we feel like we are also submerging in the middle of all our problems. So it's just a very quick comparison about Peter. He was unstable and unbelieving for a moment. Also, he was a coward and a traitor. In Matthew 26, what do we see? We see Peter denying Jesus, and he did it 3 times. Someone else saw him saying, you are one of his disciples. But Peter said, no, you are confused. I am not this one of this group. I don't know this man. The next person, I saw you walk behind him, between his crowd. No, I don't know this man. And sometimes his words were inappropriate to talk about Jesus. Yet the third, someone else say, yeah, you are, because even your way, how you speak, is very similar, like the way, like Jesus. So he was so desperate. No, I don't know him. I don't know this man. Run away like a coward. I think if Peter had just denied Jesus 1 time, if he say, no, I don't know him, just one, I could say, okay, poor Peter, maybe he was confused, maybe it was an accident. But it was not an accident. He was very conscious. He made it 3 times. He knew what he was doing. For this, he was literally a traitor. He was not Jesus' friend or even disciple, as he had. He thought, the people around, or the other disciples thought about him. It was a very negative attitude. He could say, yes, I know his disciple. And what? What is the matter? But he didn't say. He just said, I don't know him. It is a lie. It is not true. It was his huge problem. Also, he was arrogant. In Acts 10, what we see? There he refused to eat the animals that God had indicated him through a vision. Peter was praying after this. He was hungry, and then he heard a voice. And God was saying, here it is, Peter, these all animals you can kill and eat because you are hungry. And what he say? He say, I will never eat something unclear. And God answered him in the same moment. He say, do not call what I do unclear. And then the vision went back to the heaven, and everything disappeared. At this point, Peter manifested or showed himself arrogant, because it was like he knew more than God knew about this topic. Also, he was called stumbling stone in Matthew 16. So what happened there? Jesus was almost in the time for the crucifixion, right? And then one moment before Peter comes to him, he tried to convince him to not go to the cross. In other words, Jesus, take care of yourself. Oh no, you don't deserve this. Don't do this. He tried to convince. I don't think Jesus was there standing, listen, all these things from Peter, because some moment, I'm very sure in the beginning of this intention to convince Jesus, Jesus came back to him and say, fall back, Satan, go away, Satan. And the thing for me is, Jesus looked at Peter's face. He said, go away or go back or disappear, Satan. Because apparently it was not Peter there talking to convince Jesus to not make the plan which God had to save us, which was to die on the cross. So just Satan wanted for all his life change the plan of our salvation. And it was a very hard word to Peter. He was really terrible in some moments. It was really the maximum of the situation. And Jesus said basically, go away, Satan. Look to Peter. He didn't look to Satan. He was seeing Peter in front of him. It was for me a very clear idea or experience that shows us how much we can use it by something else to frustrate God's plans in our life. And it was negative. Also, he was intolerant and impatient. In John 18:10, what he did, the Bible says he cut off the soldier's ear. The soldier came to take Jesus. He jumped in the soldier. Yeah, I'm sure probably he wanted to cut his head off, but probably the soldier jumped away. He just took his ear. What happened? Jesus said, no, Jesus didn't approve his attitude. What are you doing? Stop there. And then Jesus took his soldier ear, put it back there. It was perfect again. In this point, the soldier did not have to make any plastic surgery, right? Because he was already ready for the beautiful, powerful miracle from Jesus. Also, he was impulsive and also sanguine. How? Initially, Jesus was trying to teach them a lesson, washing their feet. And then when it came to Peter's turn to wash his feet, he put his feet under, probably like this. He said, no, Jesus, don't do this. I'm not worthy you wash my feet. All these things he said. And then Jesus said to him, if you don't let me wash your feet, Peter, you have no part with me. And then for 1 second, Peter thought with himself, oh no, then it's okay, Jesus, wash my feet, wash my complete feet, my head, my arms, wash me everything completely. So very impulsive, very impulsive, right? Very sanguine. He thought without think. He said things, he did things without measuring the consequence. So all these negative qualities of Peter shows us two important things. The first is, generally, we externalize what we really are inside yet. And what we keep internally, we reflect externally. So in other words, however we are or we have inside, one day will come out and everybody will see. For this reason, it's very important that me and you let God come into our life and start to heal our souls. He has healing for me e for you. No matter as aos chronic problem, aos chronic addiction, aos chronic deformity, aos chronic illness, He can heal. He can bring healing to our lives. Because if you know, one day, even as a Christians, our bad, our ugly situation we have inside will come out and everybody will see. And then the situation will be worse. The second thing, all this story about Peter shows us that he still needed to learn, to discipline himself, and to sanctify himself, and to think before to act, because he was absolutely impulsive against himself, against everything. In my opinion, he was completely impulsive. He was completely out of control. He needed to learn how to control and discipline himself, because he was becoming a leader. He was becoming an apostle. He was becoming a head of the primitive church. Years later, he was becoming a man full of the power of God. If he didn't learn to discipline himself, to shut up his mouth, to control his character, he could become a big disaster to the world, like so many other ministries in our present time are. So many ministries in different places of the world are doing things we cannot even describe, because they don't have control, they don't have discipline, they don't have order, organization for anything. And they think they can do everything without control, without. It is not true. We need to be example in absolutely everything, and even expressions of our character. So it is a very important thing to think, because we are in the same line of leadership. Later, probably will be in the same place of Peter as a leader. His name, we'll see Simon means listening, right? Or the one who hears. It is a very important and beautiful definition. It comes from Hebrew. So his name has basically two roots. The first is Shimon. Shimon is the first origin for Simon, and literally comes from the root Shama. So in this case, Shama, I put the transliteration here, which means he heard. And in my opinion, this definition Shama makes reference to one of God's style, which is Eu Shama. You know Hebrew, we read all from the right to the left, right? For this I say Shimon, the origin of Simon, the root Shama, always the right to the left. And here makes reference to one of the most powerful and beautiful God style, which is El Shama. So El Shama means what? The one who hears, which is our powerful God. He always is very willing to hear us, and no matter how we are, no matter which is our situation, he is always very, very, very willing to help us. And remember, this name Simon is part also of the Old Testament, right? In one side is Simon, but in Hebrew is Simeon, which is also relating to the patriarch Jacob and his second son, which was this name translated to Hebrew, Simeon. So now, nonetheless, of all this situation, Jesus said to him, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." It is in Matthew 16:18. This is a reference, a biblical reference, Jesus was the one who said it to Peter. Now I have two important questions for you from this reference. My first question, what does the first part of this question mean? You are Peter. This is the first part. You are Peter, comma. What do we think about this first part? Was Jesus referring to Peter as a man, or the meaning of his name, which is rock or stone, something solid, something strong, something resistant? Or he was expressing comparisons between Peter, the name Peter, and all the quality of his name, which is solid, to be solid, firm, consistent, firmly, all these things. But now I think with myself, Peter was nothing about firm, consistent, solid. He was very behind of all these qualities. He just have a nice name now because Jesus gave him this new name, thinking he also planned what Peter, this man, was going to be in the future. It's like a plan. Jesus made a plan, and the first step was call him and give him a new identity, which was his name, Peter, which means stone, something solid, resistant, something which endure all this kind of impact. It was the idea of Peter, because Jesus was already seeing or looking the future of him, not because he was these things, these qualities now, because he was not. He was not at all. So could, in other kind of a question, could it be, could Jesus be, for example, mocking him, or being kind of unstable, or a man with no discipline in almost everything in his life? Was Jesus mocking of him, saying, you are Peter, you are solid, strong, firm, while he was all the opposite? What do you think? I think no. I think Jesus was not mocking, because he never did it with no one, he never will do that time or with us today. Never. Jesus is not like us. He is a perfect father, is a perfect friend, is a perfect savior. He never will do something this way to offend us, because he knows already how we are. We need help, something to make us even more broke, right? I also believe Jesus was declaring, when he say you are Peter, because Peter brings the idea of something solid, resistance, strong. Jesus was already declaring his vision to him, to this man called Peter, and for his life. Brother and sister, from this point, I believe our declaration has a lot of power over our lives. So let's declare the positive over ourselves. Like Jesus was doing, he was declaring, you are rock, you are solid, you are stronger than you can imagine. It is the name Peter. And Jesus was already declaring a very positive word over his life. He also, I remember right now in Romans 8:37, the Bible says, in Jesus, in him, in God, we are more than conquerors. We are already, it is present tense. We are already more than conquerors. And this is the only vision I believe God has about you and about me, as the vision of victory. Although we have more flaws than victories, for example, or he already sees our victory, no matter if you have more defects than qualities, good qualities, more problems than positive things, no matter how we are, he already sees your victory. He already sees my victory. And all things include our bad character, like Peter, for example, because he sees us through Jesus Christ, and through him we are accepted always. Through Jesus, we never are rejected. We always are accepted. Then, after this first part, my next question is, what does the second part of the question mean? The second part is here, right? And on this rock, I will build my church. And on this rock, I will build my church. We are yet in this reference. What the second part of this question mean? And on this rock, I will build my church. What it means? I believe Jesus was referring not exactly to Peter. This is my personal opinion. I really think Jesus was referring to himself. He was not referring to Peter as a solid rock, because Peter was not really, he was just a man. Then I ask you your opinion before I say mine. He was referring to Peter as a rock or referring to himself? And then my idea is, while Jesus was saying this, and on this rock, he pointed to himself. He said, you are Peter, but in this rock, I will build my church, as this second part of the reference says. I will build the church in myself, because I am the only who is really strong. He will be forever. Since Jesus is the cornerstone, right? We know this. He is our cornerstone. He is our Savior. He is the foundation of the whole universe. The literal cornerstone is the one firm, is strong enough to be our foundation and the foundation of his church. For this verse was not talking about Peter. Peter was Peter, I mean, but after this comma, on this rock. And this rock here has to be a capital letter to start the word. Capital R, rock, because referring to Jesus. In this rock, I will build my church, because he is the cornerstone forever. He is the only Savior, the only able to be the foundation of the whole universe forever. He is strong enough to build his church and make it be strong forever. Apple complete his life, his career. Peter was a man full of the power of God. It is a very important thing to see, because even now, we just saw all his negative side. Peter has a very difficult character in so many ways, but now, after he crossed all this experience, he really submitted all his old man to Jesus' life. He changed. At the end, he was this man full of the power of God. For example, in Act 3, what happened there? The text says him and John were going into the temple. In the very door was a man who was a kind of a handicap, right? This man, he never walked in all his entire life. Someone put him in the door of the temple, imagine day by day, to ask money, like a homeless. And then one day, Peter and John already coming to the temple, and then the man probably stood his hand, asked something, and Peter and John stopped in front of him. And Peter was now the powerful man. He came in front. He said, we talk about him and John. We do not have gold or plate or money or however you want. We do not have it, but what we have, refer again plural, him and John, this we can give you. And then jumped to the singular. He said, in the name of Jesus, I command you, stand up now, you walk. And immediately the man jumped and started to walk inside of the temple. The text says even everybody inside were very surprised how this man were so many years there, and now he is walking very normal. It is a very powerful and super miracle. It is a very important expression of this man, because before he was very carnal, very out of control, and now he was a man of power. And one thing you observe, he didn't pray for this handicap, this homeless. He didn't pray. He just declared the word. He just declared the command. However, this homeless had disappeared immediately from his body. He walked very well. So it is important to see how he became different, how different he became after submitting him to God. It is a very powerful expression of God's power in his life. Also in the same book, chapter 9, we see he raised a woman. In this case, was a woman called Tabitha, and she died. Someone asked Peter, who was around the area, he came. There he asked everybody go away from the room, and he started to pray. And then he stood there, and he looked at this body. The woman was dead. He said, Tabitha, get up. And she opened her eyes and sat down. Again, he just commanded, just declared the word of life, and she was resurrected again. That was the power of God in his life. It is very important thing to see, because he was not always negative, as we saw. He, from certain time of his life, he became a new man, a different man. So he, despite all this apparent deformity of character, about all his faults he made, we saw already, Peter was the one referred to as healing the sick with his shadow. Well, I mention this not because I think his shadow really fixed the people health or bring healing to him. I don't see the text, the reference of Acts 5 say this. I don't believe that he did. I think it is just a reference. Like the people were so sick, they didn't have a solution. Then it expressed their hope to be touched by someone so powerful like Peter. In their heart, their mind, maybe their words, they say, I would love to be touched by Peter. I am sure if he touched me, I will be healed. So in this case, I don't think his shadow healed people, but I think it was a kind of expression of hope from the people, the most miserable people who didn't have all the solution needed to be touched by someone so powerful like Peter. Because I don't see this text explicitly says his shadow healed the people. I don't think. I just think it reveals the hope that the sick people in their families even had, that some miracle would happen in their favor, in their behalf, to improve their health. In the end, he was the leader of the primitive early Christian church. We know this, right? So, exactly, he was the leader of the primitive church because he was prominent at the time. He was famous because of so much power of God in his life. What a blessing. This is my opinion. It was a really powerful, impactant blessing. Now we understand why God called him, ordained him, summoned him, and committed him to the ministry. So God called, he committed him in all possible aspects for his ministry. Why? Because he was, if you see his sequence of life, he was from 0 to 1,000, right? He was in the flesh, and now he was this powerful man of God. God knew already his sequence was to kill, to die in his old man, and go to the maximum in holiness, in communion with God, and then become powerful in this way, despite all his craziness. I say craziness, all his indiscipline, all his impulsive character, all his mistakes. I call all of this together craziness. All his craziness, In the end, he was one of the greatest examples of courage, bravery, and perseverance, and also in faith. All this power shows us that Peter really learned his lesson from his own mistakes. And it is something very important to observe. I believe as a wise the person who learns from her or his own mistake. We make mistake and we cannot let these mistakes destroy our autoconfidence. It's necessary to learn from this. It will make us strong, right? We need to learn from mistakes. Also because of this, the Bible talk about so many important people in the Bible and also about their mistakes to teach us with them. His faith has never been the same, absolutely not. Peter's experience of ups and downs, victories and defeats shows us that God never gives up on us. Never. No matter we are, no matter who we are or how we are, our God is so faithful, He never will say no for us in the way to abandon us. Never. This is all the opposite. No matter how you are, no matter how big is your challenge, your fight, your conflict, your doubt, your weakness, your big problem. This God we know never will give up on you. He never will give up on me. This is my very confident faith. And Peter died between the years 68 and 69 AD. And the history says, this is the almost a secular history, says he died in a cross, but in the different position. His head was down, his feet up, because according to the history, right, it says he was not worthy to die as Jesus, in the same position of Jesus in the cross. The Bible does not say about this. It is just a history. For this, I didn't show you in my PowerPoint. I just say he died between 68 and 69 AD. It is enough for me. Then, our first question again. This is our main question. Sίμων Ιωάννου. Simon is in English, right? Σίμων Ιωάννου in Greek. Ἀγαπᾷς με πλέον τούτων. Simon, son of John. Ἀγαπᾷς me. You love me with a perfect love. Plέον, more than. Much more than. More deeply, more abundantly, more perfectly than this. And then the question in English, I left here at this blank space. This is the space from Peter's name to challenge you. And my idea is, how about we place, or you place your name in this blank space of Peter's name? Just for 1 second, I'm not changing the Bible. I just change here my PowerPoint, my slide. And I remove Peter's name. He left here this blank space just to make a very quick experience. And then you place your name here. For example, which name you have? For example, James. Or which other name? Mary. Or other name. Or I will put my name. Carmen. You love me more than this? If Jesus asked me this, maybe I will think very, very, very seriously about my condition, what I have inside. Maybe I will have the immediately answer, but maybe I'll say, okay, Jesus, I will think about this after you come with my answer. Maybe I will say this. We don't know how we will react. For this reason, I invite you to place your name here. He asks you this very important question. Your name you love me more than, much more than these other people? What would be your answer if Jesus asked you this question, brother and sister? And which kind of love would you use to respond to him about his question if you love him? After doing all this little practice and exercise, after doing this, how do you see yourself in this context of conversation, very intimate and personal conversation with Jesus? How you think you will feel if you imagine you in the middle of this, John 21, between 15 and 17, as not Peter, but as you. Come here, James, come here, Mary, come here, come. We need to have a nice conversation. What will feel if we are the individual, the person here in this context like Peter was? Think about this. And while you wait for the second part of this video, I would like you to study this text from John 21, 15 to 17 a little more, as much as you can, as much as possible. Because one thing is very important. The more we study the Word of God, the more we know the God of the Word. Do you know this? Much more we know His Word, at the same level we will know Him. And consequently, or as a result, we will know ourselves even more. After to know His Word and know Him through His Word, we will know us more than we know today. And then maybe it will help us not to be confused like Peter and all his personal questions. I give you this kind of homework until the next video, okay? So I am so excited to come back with you with the second part of the video. God bless you. Thank you for being with me even now. See you next video. Bye bye.